Okay, think about the device you're holding right now. Probably in your hand, maybe your pocket. It's sleek, right? Powerful, connects you to everything.
Hmm.
Now try picturing this. The very first mobile phone, Motorola Dynatac 8000X, weighed over 2 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and get this,
Yeah.
10 hours charging for just 30 minutes of talk time, and basically no screen as we think of it now.
It's almost unbelievable compared to today.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into that whole journey, the evolution of the smartphone from those, well, clunky beginnings to these indispensable gadgets we have now.
And it's such a fascinating story, not just one big tech leap, but like you said, a real convergence of different ideas and innovations building on each other.
Exactly. So let's rewind. 1973, New York City. Martin Cooper makes the first ever public cell phone call on that Motorola brick we mentioned.
That Dynatac, yeah.
Yeah.
A historical moment.
But imagine the limitations. 10 hours charging for half an hour of just talking. That's it. No texting, no apps, nothing. Just voice.
It really puts it in perspective. Just being able to make a call wirelessly anywhere. That was the revolution back then. The rest hadn't even been imagined yet, really.
So fast forward a bit into the 80s. We get the Motorola MicroTac.
Ah, yes, the flip phone begins.
Yeah, a definite step towards being more portable. But these things were still incredibly expensive, right? Kind of status symbol.
Oh, absolutely. The MicroTac wasn't just about communication. It was a statement. And that high cost, well, it really shaped who used it early on. Mostly business, not the everyday person.
That's a really key point. Technology needs to be accessible, affordable for it to really change things for everyone.
Exactly. You need that widespread adoption.
Which brings us to the 90s and the rollout of 2G digital networks. This felt like a pretty big shift.
It was huge. 2G brought clearer calls, much better battery life, but the absolute game changer, SMS, short message service, texting.
Texting, it's so second nature now. It's hard to think of it as revolutionary.
But it was. Completely changed how we communicate.
So what was it about 2G technically that made texting possible? Wasn't it just voice before?
Right. So 1G was analog, mostly just voice. 2G was digital. That meant the signal could be broken down into little packets of data. Voice still used it, but you could also send these small data packets. Perfect for short text messages.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So digital signals, data packets, that's the key.
Precisely. It was much more efficient for that kind of short, bursty communication. Made it feasible, made it relatively cheap.
And suddenly we could communicate without having to talk at the exact same time, asynchronous.
Exactly. That asynchronous aspect was massive. Plus, let's be honest, it was new and kind of cool. A whole new way to connect.
Okay, so amidst all this 2G and texting excitement, something else pops up in 1994, the IBM Simon.
Ah, the Simon, often called the first smartphone.
Yeah, it seems crazy early. It had a touchscreen, email, calendar, even apps. Way ahead of its time.
It really was a glimpse into the future, but, it didn't really take off commercially.
Why not? It sounds like it had all the right ideas.
Well, several reasons. The infrastructure wasn't quite on there. Networks weren't robust enough for reliable data everywhere. There wasn't really an app ecosystem like we have today. And again, cost was a major factor.
Right. So a pioneer, but maybe too early. The supporting pieces weren't in place.
Exactly. Innovation needs timing and the right environment to succeed on a large scale.
But even though the Simon didn't conquer the world, the idea didn't die. We saw companies like Nokia, Ericsson. They kept pushing with what we now call feature phones. More than just calls, but not quite full smartphones.
Definitely. Think of the Nokia 9000 communicator, that clamshell design, the little keyboard inside.
Oh, yeah. Looked like a mini laptop.
It really hinted at phones becoming more like productivity tools, information devices.
And then, of course, maybe the most iconic feature phone ever, Nokia 3310, year 2000.
The legend, indestructible, and Snake.
Snake. You have to mention Snake. So many hours lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the 3310, beyond the memes, showed phones were becoming personal items, sources of basic entertainment even.
So moving into the early 2000s, we start seeing this convergence happening. Mobile phones and PDAs, personal digital assistants.
Right. The Palm Pilots, the handspring trios.
Yeah.
People wanted the organization of a PDA combined with a phone.
I remember those. The Handspring Trio 180 around 2002, that felt like a big step. It had the touchscreen, email, and that little thumb keyboard.
Yes, the trio was significant. It brought together a lot of those pieces, communication, organization, a more smarter interface, but maybe still lacked that seamlessness, that real ease of use we expect now.
The pieces were coming together, definitely. But something was still missing, which sets the stage for BlackBerry.
Ah, the BlackBerry era. Started as a fancy pager in '99, right?
Yeah, then evolved into a phone around 2002, and their big focus was secure email and BBM, their own messaging system.
And it just exploded in the business world. The crackberry addiction was real.
That physical QWERTY keyboard became totally iconic. If you were serious about business, you probably had a BlackBerry.
They absolutely nailed that niche. Secure, efficient communication, especially email, on the go.
But they weren't the only ones trying to figure out this smartphone thing. Nokia had its Symbian OS. Microsoft had Windows Mobile.
Right, those were definitely players. Nokia was huge in phones generally, and Microsoft obviously had Software Cloud.
But were they really hitting the mark in terms of user experience?
Yeah, that was the criticism often. They were functional, sure, but sometimes a bit clunky, maybe not super intuitive compared to what came next. You often had to kind of wrestle with the interface a bit.
Okay. So the market was there, the technology was evolving, but maybe the user experience wasn't quite perfected. The stage was definitely set for a shakeup.
A major disruption was brewing.
All right, let's take a quick pause there, and when we come back, we'll dive into that disruption, the arrival of the iPhone.
Sounds good.
And we're back on the deep dive. So we left off just before 2007. BlackBerry, Windows Mobile, Symbian. Smartphones existed, but perhaps hadn't captured the public imagination fully. Then Steve Jobs walks on stage.
And unveils the iPhone. Yeah. Look, people debate how revolutionary it truly was, given things like the Simon or the Trio came before. It definitely built on earlier innovations.
Sure, that's fair. But the impact was undeniable. It just felt different. What were the key things that made it stand out so much?
Okay, a few big ones. First, that screen. It used a capacitive touch screen.
Right, explain that difference. Most before were resistive, weren't they? You had to press harder.
Exactly. Resistive screens need pressure. Capacitive screens react to the electrical conductivity of your finger. This allowed for multi-touch pinching, swiping much more fluid, much more intuitive. It felt incredibly responsive.
That multi-touch was a huge deal. Pinch to zoom felt like magic back then.
It really did. Second, the design. It was sleek, minimalist, very different from the often bulkier, button-heavy designs of the time.
True. And third?
The software, iOS. It was designed from the ground up for touch with a focus on simplicity and user experience. It was just easier to use than pretty much anything else out there. Less digging through menus.
That user-friendliness was key, I think. It lowered the barrier to entry. It wasn't just for techies anymore.
Absolutely. And then the masterstroke came a year later, 2008. The App Store.
Ah, yes. Because the first iPhone didn't actually have third-party apps, did it?
Nope. The App Store changed everything. Suddenly, the iPhone wasn't just Apple's device, it was a platform. Developers could create apps for anything, games, productivity, social media.
It unleashed this incredible wave of creativity and functionality. Your phone could become whatever you needed it to be just by downloading an app.
Exactly. It created a whole new mobile economy, transformed the phone into this incredibly personal, customizable tool. That was maybe the killer feature in the long run.
And Apple kept pushing. iPhone 4 in 2010, the Retina display. Suddenly, screens looked incredibly sharp.
Set a new standard for pixel density, yeah. Made text and images super crisp.
And maybe seemingly small, but culturally huge, the front-facing camera.
Oh, yeah. Hello, selfies. Changed photography, changed how we share our lives online. Hard to imagine a phone without one now.
So true. Okay, so Apple carves out this path with the iPhone, very controlled ecosystem, focus on user experience, but then Google enters the scene with Android.
Right. Also in 2008 with the HTC Dream, sometimes called the G1. And Android took a very different approach.
Oh, so?
Open source. Google provided the basic Android operating system, but manufacturers, Samsung, HTC, Motorola, LG, eventually many others could take it, modify it, put it on their own hardware.
So less control than Apple, more variety.
Much more variety. Different designs, different features, different price points. Apple had the iPhone, Android had lots of phones.
And Samsung, with their Galaxy S series, quickly became the big Android rival to the iPhone, right?
For sure. That Samsung versus Apple rivalry really pushed innovation hard throughout the 2010s, both trying to outdo each other with features, cameras, performance.
And that competition, plus the open nature of Android, led to this explosion in smartphone availability and adoption in the 2010s. Suddenly, everyone seemed to have one. New players like Xiaomi, Oppo, Huawei came in too.
Yeah, the 2010s were the smartphone boom years. Prices came down, 4G networks rolled out, making data faster and more usable.
And features that were once high-end, like GPS, good cameras, app stores, just became standard, expected.
It was that perfect storm, like we said earlier, but now supercharged. Affordability, fast connectivity, and tons of functionality all hitting at once. Smartphones went from niche to completely mainstream.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those key innovations during that boom decade, the 2010s. Cameras seem like a huge one.
Oh, absolutely massive. We went from having, a pretty basic single camera on the back to these complex multi-camera systems. Wide angle, telephoto, macro lenses, and the quality just got dramatically better. Rivals DSLRs in many situations now. A lot of that is down to better sensor technology, bigger sensors, better low light performance, higher resolution, but also, crucially, computational photography.
Explain that. That's more about the software, right?
Exactly. It's using clever software algorithms to process the image data from the sensors. Things like combining multiple exposures for better dynamic range, HDR, digitally zooming without losing too much quality, portrait modes that blur the background.
Like the Google Pixel phones were famous for, and later iPhones really leaned into it too.
Precisely. Computational photography uses AI and processing power to overcome the physical limitations of small phone sensors and lenses. It's like having a super smart photo editor built right in.
Amazing stuff. What about screens? They obviously got bigger.
Bigger, yes, but also better. Bezels got thinner, leading to that edge-to-edge look, more immersive, higher refresh rates for smoother scrolling. And then we started seeing experiments like foldable screens.
Right, the Samsung Galaxy Fold being the first big one. Still pretty niche and expensive, but points towards different form factors.
Definitely hints at blurring lines between phones and tablets, maybe.
And under the hood, performance just kept skyrocketing.
Oh, yeah. Chips like Apple's A-series and Qualcomm's Snapdragon became incredibly powerful. Phones turned into mini computers. You could suddenly do serious gaming, edit video, run augmented reality apps. Tasks unthinkable on early phones.
From single-core processors just handling calls to multi-core beasts.
It's an incredible leap in processing power in a small device.
And connectivity kept pace. We moved from 3G to 4G, and then 5G started rolling out towards the end of the decade.
Right. 5G promises even faster speeds, lower latency, which opens doors for things like seamless cloud gaming, high-res streaming everywhere, maybe even remote surgery one day. Still evolving. But the potential is huge.
And AI became much more integrated too, didn't it?
Absolutely. Virtual assistants like Siri and Google Assistant became common, voice control got better, and behind the scenes, AI and machine learning started optimizing things like battery life based on your usage, improving camera shots automatically. They became embedded.
It's funny how quickly features that seemed futuristic just become normal.
It's the relentless pace of tech evolution. But this technological leap hasn't just happened in a vacuum. These devices, being so powerful and ubiquitous, have fundamentally changed. Well, everything. Society itself.
That's a crucial point. We've talked tech, but what about the human side? The societal impact?
Exactly. How have smartphones changed how we connect, work, play, even think? That's maybe the most profound part of the story.
Okay, let's dive into that. This final part, exploring that massive social impact and maybe, just maybe, looking at what might come next.
Welcome back for our final segment on the deep dive. We've traced the tech from the Dynatac brick to today's supercomputers in our pockets. But now, let's talk impact. How have these things changed us?
It's almost hard to overstate, isn't it? A device for calls is now central to pretty much everything.
Socializing, working, shopping, navigating, entertainment. It's all intertwined with a smartphone now.
Let's start with social connection. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, their explosion seems directly tied to smartphones.
Absolutely. Smartphones made social media mobile, immediate, always available. You could share moments as they happen, check updates constantly, connect from anywhere. It shifted the whole center of gravity from desktop computers to our pockets.
And that changed how we interact, how we get news, how public conversations happen.
Yeah.
For better or worse sometimes.
Definitely a complex impact. Increased connection, but also potential for echo chambers, disinformation, comparison culture.
Right. And then there's work. The whole gig economy, Uber, DoorDash, freelance platforms, that's built on smartphones, isn't it?
Completely. It relies on location services, instant communication, payment processing, all through an app on a phone that connects workers and customers.
It's enabled new kinds of work, more flexibility for some. Remote work became much more feasible, too.
True. But it also brought challenges. That blurring of work and life, the always-on expectation because, well, your work tools are always in your pocket.
Yeah, that work-life balance thing is a constant negotiation now. It's a definite double-edged sword. And entertainment. Phones are arguably the dominant entertainment device for many people now.
Think about it. Mobile gaming is massive, from casual stuff like Angry Birds back in the day
Yeah.
to complex games like PUBG Mobile now, streaming services, Netflix, Spotify. Your entire media library travels with you.
Instant access to almost anything, anywhere. Which is amazing, but also raises questions about screen time, attention spans.
Right, the constant potential for distraction. Is it harder to just be bored or be present when endless entertainment is a tap away? It's something psychologists and sociologists are actively studying.
And alongside all this convenience and connection, there's the shadow of data privacy.
A huge one. Events like the Cambridge Analytica scandal really brought it to public attention around 2018, just how much data these devices and the apps on them collect about us.
Our location, what we browse, who we talk to, what we buy, it's an enormous amount of personal information.
And the concern is how that data is used, who has access to it, and the potential for misuse, whether for targeted advertising, manipulation, or worse.
Yeah.
It's critical ongoing conversation.
So where does that leave us now looking forward from, say, March 2025? The market feels a bit mature, incremental upgrades mostly.
Yeah, the pace of radical change seems to have slowed a bit compared to the early 2010s. We're seeing refinements. Foldable phones are interesting, gaining some ground, but still pretty pricey, still finding their exact purpose for most people.
There's a lot of buzz around AR and VR, though. Things like Apple's Vision Pro. Is that the next step? Merging digital and physical.
It's certainly one potential direction, using the phone or maybe future headsets that work with the phone as a gateway to augmented reality experiences. Overlaying digital info onto the real world. It's still early days for mass adoption, but the potential is there.
What about other trends? Sustainability seems bigger now.
Definitely. More focus on using recycled materials, making devices last longer, providing software updates for longer periods, maybe even modular designs, though those haven't really taken off yet.
And battery life is always the holy grail, right?
Yeah.
Any breakthroughs there?
Solid-state batteries are the big hope on the horizon. Promise higher energy density, so longer life, and faster charging, potentially safer too. Still mostly in development, but could be a significant improvement when they arrive.
Privacy concerns are also driving interest in things like decentralized apps, more encrypted communication.
Yes, a growing awareness and demand for more user control over data and more secure ways to interact online.
So the big question, I guess, does the smartphone just keep evolving like this, getting better cameras, faster chips, maybe folding screens, or does something completely different come along?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question.
Yeah.
Will wearables, like smartwatches or maybe smart glasses, become more independent? Will we see things like neural interfaces further down the line? Or will the smartphone slab remain the dominant form factor for personal computing?
Or could there even be a backlash? People wanting simpler devices, less constant connectivity.
That's possible too. A desire to disconnect, perhaps using more basic dumb phones alongside a smartphone. Or just being more mindful about usage. The future isn't set.
It really makes you think about your own relationship with this device, doesn't it? How reliant we've become.
Absolutely. It's been an incredible journey in a relatively short time, from that 2-pound brick to the device in your pocket right now.
It truly has. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive through the smartphone's evolution. It's a story that's still unfolding.
Definitely.
We hope it gave you something to think about regarding your own tech use and what the future might hold. Feel free to share your thoughts. Until next time.
Confidence. Mindset shift building. Confidence starts with changing how you think about your English. Here's how to make that shift. See English as a tool, not a test. It's not about proving how good you are. It's about connecting with people and sharing ideas. Embrace the learning process. Every expert was once a beginner. Every mistake is actually progress. It means you're pushing your limits. Focus on what you can say, not what you can't. Even with limited vocabulary, you can communicate effectively. Practical confidence builders. Let's talk about specific techniques you can use starting today. The power of preparation. Create a confidence bank of phrases you can use in common situations. Practice introducing yourself until it feels automatic. Prepare answers to frequently asked questions about your work or hobbies. The 3-second response rule. When someone asks you a question in English, make yourself respond within 3 seconds. This prevents overthinking and builds quick thinking skills. Body language for confidence. Maintain good posture. It actually changes how you feel. Make appropriate eye contact. Use hand gestures naturally. Smile. It relaxes you and the person you're speaking with. Daily habits for steady improvement. Confidence grows with consistent practice. Here are effective daily exercises. Morning. English routine. Spend 5 minutes speaking out loud about your plans for the day. Read a short article or social media post in English. Listen to an English podcast while getting ready. Evening reflection. Note. Down one successful English interaction from your day. Identify one area for improvement. Plan how you'll use English tomorrow. Weekly challenges. Have one longer conversation in English. Each week, learn and practice 5 new useful phrases. Watch a short video and summarize it out loud. Overcoming specific fear situations. Let's address some common fear scenarios and how to handle them. Phone conversations. Prepare key phrases beforehand. Have a notebook handy for important information. Don't be afraid to ask the person to slow down group discussions. Prepare 1 or 2 points you want to make. Use simple phrases to enter the conversation. That's interesting. Focus on listening when you're not speaking. Presentations. Practice multiple times out loud. Use visual aids to support your message. Remember that your audience wants you to succeed. Advanced confidence techniques. Once you've built basic confidence, try these powerful methods. Recording yourself. Audio record your practice sessions. Video record short presentations. Analyze your strengths and areas to improve. Thought shadowing. Think in English during daily activities. Mentally describe what you're doing. Have imaginary conversations in your head. Expanding comfort zone. Gradually take on more challenging situations. Join an English conversation group. Volunteer to speak in low-pressure environments. Maintaining long-term confidence building. Confidence is one thing, keeping it is another. Here's how to sustain your progress. Track your progress. Keep a journal of successful interactions. Note new words and phrases you've used. Celebrate milestones. First full conversation, first presentation, etc. Build a support system. Find a language partner. Join a learning community. Surround yourself with encouraging people. Continuous learning. Always be adding to your vocabulary. Work on pronunciation of difficult sounds. Learn idioms and natural expressions. Big picture. English as part of your life. Ultimately, confident English speaking comes from making the language a natural part of your daily life. It's not about special talent or being good at languages. It's about consistent practice and the right mindset. Remember that every confident English speaker you admire was once where you are now. They didn't start out confident. They became confident through practice and persistence. And you can too. Final challenge, your confidence action plan. Here's what I want you to do right now. Identify one situation where you lack confidence. Choose. One technique from this guide to try commit to using it within the next 24 hours. Afterwards, reflect on what went well. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through action. So, take that first step today and keep moving forward one conversation at a time. Conclusion: your English confidence journey. As we finish, I want you to remember this. Your ability to speak English confidently isn't determined by where you start, but by your willingness to keep going. Every conversation is practice. Every interaction is progress. And every time you push past your comfort zone, you're becoming the confident English speaker you want to be. The world needs to hear what you have to say, in English and with confidence. So take these strategies, put them into practice, and watch as your fear transforms into fluency. Your confident English future starts now.